He's a communist. We're going to go to a communistic state. That's so bad for New York. I think I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again.
Hey, communists are rational people now, according to Donald Trump.
Any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power.
I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. Maybe I think he'll change his mind after we get to working together.
I am.
So the despot meets with the communist, and this is supposed to be good for America? In an effort to turn this ship around and demonstrate to Americans that statism is a cancer that invades people's minds, and show us that it's no measure of good mental health to be considered well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society, I give you Adam Mockler, who's from Midas Touch Network, appearing on the Counterfeit News Network, saying, I exposed Trump live on CNN. Notice he doesn't say, I exposed Mamdani.
You saw Donald Trump essentially undermining the MAGA media ecosystem in real time. For the past few months, they've called Zohran Mamdani a jihadist, communist, a threat to America who's incompatible with the governing style of America. You think he's incompatible with the governing style of America?
His values
Trump
are fundamental. Trump is wrong on this case.
You think Trump is wrong on this case? Hey everybody, Adam Mockler here. Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned from Congress. Then moments later, I went on CNN to debate about it. You guys are going to like this. Drop a like. Subscribe if you want to see more. I love you all, and watch until the end.
Breaking news tonight.
You know, I just want to say it's really amazing. If you have a statist, cancerous, I believe that men in government have control. They have a right to control me and take my stuff. In an effort to demonstrate that this is the case in America, you are highly rewarded. Look at this. This kid, one day ago, 413,000 views on this one video. Most of his videos that he launches gets over 200, 300, 400, 500,000 views. He's got 1.74 million subscribers. He's growing like crazy. I think he gets like 60, 70 million views every single month, just like Brian Tyler Cohen, 120 million views, Midas Touch, 500 or 600 million views a month. When you pick a side on the statist spectrum, you get popular, you get rewarded. And why is that? Why do they top shelf you on these platforms? Because they want people stuck in the muck and mire of political cyanide.
Is MAGA cracking? One of the president's most loyal followers for a decade says that she is resigning from Congress after a bitter fallout with President Trump.
Loyalty should be a two-way street, and we should be able to vote our conscience. America first should mean America first and only Americans first. Standing up for American women who were raped at 14 years old, trafficked and used by rich, powerful men should not result in me being called a traitor and threatened by the President of the United States. I refuse.
That's true. I agree with MTG here. You're exposing the worst among society, and yet the administration that she voted for, that she promoted, that she incessantly supported, is coming out against her for doing, in this case, the right thing. What does that tell you?
Used to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is realizing for the first time what it's like to be on the opposition side of Trump. She has clapped him on for years as he has over and over used the same vile rhetoric towards Democrats, towards other Republicans. But now she takes a principled stance for the first time and decides, I'm going to split with him on the Epstein files. And he goes scorched earth, calls her Marjorie Taylor Greene, unendorses her over and over.
Brown. He changed her.
It was so lazy, too. He says, because green grass turns brown. This guy's losing his juice. But the point is, Donald Trump has kicked so many people out of public life because they don't want to be the subject of his ire. This is what Mike Pence has gone through. This is what Liz Cheney has gone through. This is what Alyssa Slotkin is going through right now. He calls Marjorie a traitor, says he wants to execute or hang Democrats. And now Marjorie...
You've answered the question that you asked about whether MAGA is fracturing. The truth is MAGA is not fracturing. If Donald Trump couldn't simply unendorse someone and that'll eliminate her chances of being there, that's only because the majority of people, whether they're in her Georgia district or elsewhere in the country, are going to follow President Trump.
Well, it hasn't eliminated her chance. She did get an endorsement the first time.
You notice these people like to major and the miners. No, you got to understand, MAGA's not fracturing. You got to understand over here, the Democrats are uniting. Hey, this is a bipartisan effort. That's all side issue. Can we talk about income taxes? Property taxes? What about the golden Fort Knox that everybody seems to have forgotten about? What about the dishonest money system controlled by the Zio international banking cartels? The only reason we can go to war or have the military industrial complex or the prison industrial complex or Wall Street constantly being bailed out. That's the only reason we are in these evil wars, doing these evil things, spending an ungodly amount of money, racking up the national debt, devaluing the currency. They're not talking about that. They're talking about leftist politics and rightist politics. And as long as we're dealing with the smoke, we never get to the base where the flames originate.
An entrenchment of
She
MAGA,
wasn't endorsed the first time by Trump, by the way.
fracturing.
People like Nick Fuentes or this America First movement are now going to be hardcore lobbying to get Marjorie Taylor Greene on their side, which will only accelerate this MAGA divide between a more, I don't know, anti-Israel, a more really populist movement versus now what's kind of becoming like the MAGA establishment, which is weird. So Nick Fuentes, he's a legitimate political operator. I know that he's like a hugely divisive dude online, but he is trying to make moves to gain leverage over the Republican Party. There is a very real chance that he capitalizes on this in such a way that Marjorie is then in his camp. I don't think that would be good for the current MAGA establishment.
I think the fact that she is actually resigning and talking bad about, in the sense of like, I'm out of here. It is a fracture. This is a huge fracture. You can't say that this person who was so loyal to him isn't a fracture.
But to go back to my point, it's not a fracture of the MAGA movement. It's not a fracture of the Republican Party. It's
not a fracture of freedom versus tyranny. It's just a fracture on the side of tyranny that's wanting to spread more tyranny, create more deceptive forms of tyranny. Because you got to admit, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna were right to stand with the victims that were victimized by Jeffrey Epstein. And it really did expose who Trump was and who the Trump administration was, the caliber of person Kash Patel is and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi. Like, we already knew that before, but this made it more obvious to even the real ardent followers, the faithful followers, that, hey, there's something really strange about this, that you guys are going to continue to back and turn a blind eye to the fact that there are victims. And where are all the billionaire heads that are supposed to be rolling? Where are the perverts that should be behind bars? How come there's not one person that's been apprehended or charged with any kind of crime?
Across the Republican Party, apparently there's no room for you, and she's realized that, and now she's sayonara.
What did she cross the Republican Party on mainly?
Look, I mean, she's attacked the president. She attacked the president.
On the Epstein files?
On the Epstein files, on the economy, and you know what?
I think she attacked the president because he was trying to stymie the release of the files that were going to expose.
Well,
the
let's be
elites.
clear. President Trump is the one who's actually delivering transparency that Biden could have done in 4 years and didn't do on the Epstein files. So to pretend like Donald Trump is like, oh my God, the Epstein files can never come out. He's done more than Joe Biden did in 4 years.
He's done more to embarrass himself. Remember that clip where he's like, are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Remember when he said that? This is a guy who just is running away from his past.
Tonight, a surreal love fest between Donald Trump and the next mayor of New York. Zohran Mamdani visiting the White House.
A surreal love fest. Mamdani is a political puppet liar. Donald Trump is a parasitic political puppet, narcissistic liar. These guys are on the same team. Again, just like George Carlin said, it's a big club and you and I ain't in it. And these guys continue to foment the divide.
Today, in a meeting that had to be seen to be believed, in light of what each man has said about each other over the last...
Seen to be believed? There should be no believing this nonsense right here. It's just political theater.
...few months, this was extraordinary.
He's a communist. We're going to go to a communistic state. That's so bad for New York. I think I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again.
Hey, communists are rational people now, according to Donald Trump.
Any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power.
I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. Maybe I think he'll change his mind after we get to working together.
I am.
So the despot meets with the communist, and this is supposed to be good for America, and people are supposed to actually believe this dog and pony show?
Donald Trump's worst nightmare as a progressive Muslim immigrant who actually fights for the things that I believe in.
What I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement.
The Mamdani thing is It's a disaster waiting to happen. We can't have a communist in charge of a great, supposedly free enterprise, kind of a representative city.
Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would, especially after the meeting.
Our city.
If that right there doesn't show you how much of a farce politics is, really, nothing will.
Is under attack by an authoritarian Trump administration.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about.
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Trump walked
The alliance between fascism and communism. Everybody on the left and the right should be calling this out, but they're not.
back his threats to cut funding to New York, and tonight he even posted photos of the visit saying the meeting was a great honor. Errol, what's going on? I mean, Zoran Mamdani won because he was opposed to Trump.
Well,
how's this going to play?
The city of New York won because there was a non-zero chance that there would be National Guard troops and chaos in the streets, even before the inauguration of Mamdani. So it's great that that's not necessarily going to happen, or at least it's not going to happen imminently. I think, look, there are a couple of things that are going on. One is that Mamdani came the way you're supposed to come to Donald Trump. You come with strength, and you come with some kind of notoriety, with some popularity. So he didn't just win the election, he won in a way that nobody's ever seen before. He went from 1% in the polls to winning the Democratic primary in about 6 months. He's got a certain amount of celebrity. President Trump noted that there were more press there, international press included, than for some heads of state. That gets the attention of somebody like a Donald Trump.
You saw Donald Trump essentially undermining the MAGA media ecosystem in real time. For the past few months, they've called Zoran Mamdani a jihadist, communist, a threat to America who's incompatible with the governing style of America. You think he's incompatible with the governing style of America?
His values
Trump
are fundamental. Trump is wrong on this case.
You think Trump is wrong on this case?
Zoran Mamdani's principles are fundamentally hostile to the founding principles. His idea that we should confiscate property. John Locke, the founders, they were very clear that property rights.
Has he ever talked to Errol? He's never said anything about confiscation.
He said he wants to take luxury
moderated two debates
condos.
that have interviewed him half a dozen times.
Then you would know that he said that.
There's no confiscation.
Hey,
Then you would know that he said that.
Can I just say,
luxury condos should be taken if they're not in use?
This is a perfect example. The MAGA media ecosystem has made Zoran seem like this extreme
Big,
jihadist.
evil
And listen,
man.
some of his ideas
The
are outside
legislation he
the current political
supports in the
spectrum.
council will force property owners, before they can sell it on the public market, to sell it.
Why didn't Trump confront him about that? Why didn't Trump confront him about it? Why was Trump?
He said it was his honor.
Maybe he did.
You know what Trump said? Trump said that we both agree on increasing the supply of housing, and that's going to.
I'll tell you why.
Tonight, Donald Trump is insisting that your Thanksgiving this year will be cheaper than last year.
As you know, I've been saying to a lot of people, Walmart said that Thanksgiving this year is exactly 25% less than last year. So that's good for New York, good for everybody.
And thanks to President Trump's drill baby drill agenda, the national average price of a gallon of gas on Thanksgiving Day is projected to be at the cheapest price since the COVID pandemic in 2021.
Let's start with that last point. While it is true that gas has been cheaper this year, that's no longer the case. AAA says the average gallon is now more expensive than, at this point, last year under Biden. Second point, Walmart's Thanksgiving basket this year is cheaper because it contains less food. A new analysis also finds that overall dinner is 10% higher this year. But
if that's true, then everything Trump said was a lie, which is typical because he is really, really good at lying. As a matter of fact, he's one of the most prolific political liars.
according to one MAGA ally, forget what you hear.
There are issues on some of these prices, although I think affordability is greatly overrated.
Just a quick reminder, that wasn't just a talking head on TV. Larry Kudlow was Trump's economic advisor during the first administration. And it's probably a bad sign that people MAGA aligned or even in the administration are basically saying, don't worry about it. You know, it's all in your head.
I was going to ask you the context of that because he just said overrated. So you're saying that they believe I didn't get the whole full of it. It was just like, okay, it's overrated. We don't need to talk about it now. I said this before on your show when we were talking about SNAP benefits when the government was shut down. I think that, and that's what Trump is experiencing and this administration is experiencing now. You can't convince people that they're not getting enough food. You can't convince people they don't have food for their children. You can't convince people that they don't have enough money to actually pay for gas. All of those things are real moments that you feel. So no matter whatever you're trying to sell me, and if you're trying to tell me that it's just overrated, American people will not believe that. We just won't do that.
It's a lot less abstract than some of the other Democratic talking points we've had. Like, so when we talk about January 6th or Trump upending the rule of law or not caring about norms, that's pretty abstract in people's day-to-day lives. Yeah. But the economy affects them every single day. And Trump is hardcore gaslighting about how the economy is doing. Like, he says that inflation is, he essentially said he killed inflation at one point if there was no inflation.
But inflation was higher under President Biden.
What was inflation?
Core inflation was 3.2 in December and it's 3.0 now. CPI went up 28%. Be quiet, I'm talking, buddy. CPI went up 21%. That means that under Joe Biden, every American American lost 20 cents on every dollar. We're at the Food Network. We're talking about beef. I know that's been a big issue, right? The meat industry, right, the Meat Institute, represents 95% of meat packers, poultry packers, right? They sent a letter to the Trump administration recently basically saying, here's how you can save the meat industry. Nothing about tariffs. It was all about stupid state and federal regulations.
The tariffs are an issue. They're not the whole story, but they are a big part of the story.
The U.S. cattle herd is lower than it's ever been.
But it's not just about
because
that.
of regulations.
There are many other elements.
It's not going to just double overnight.
When you walk through the grocery store, bread is higher, beef is higher, everything
eggs are
is
lower,
higher.
coffee's higher.
Well,
you can pick and choose.
How much have eggs gone down over the past 12 months? How much have a dozen of eggs gone down?
Core inflation
it's 4
is
cents.
down.
4
is
cents
core
over the past
inflation
12
up
months.
or is core inflation down? Core inflation
is unemployment
down.
up or down?
Period.
Is unemployment
End of
up or
story.
down?
Core inflation is down.
No. Wait. Okay.
Core inflation is down.
Inflation.
Core inflation.
Is
I'm saying core inflation.
Okay. But
Cherry picking
inflation
is
is at what 3.2% now. That is a trend.
3% now. It used to be 3.1%.
But Joe, the trend since Trump came into office is that it has been ticking up, not ticking down.
Liberation Day tariffs only went into effect on August 7th due to Trump's 90-day delays, so we haven't seen the bulk of the effects, but I've seen the Republicans in the administration and on this panel cherry pick certain economic data that's incongruent with the way the average American feels.
Every politician does that. Every propagandist for the left or the right does that. Everybody's constantly cherry picking. Look away from the fact that we want to rob you and rule you and control every aspect of your life, whether Republican or Democrat. Look away from that. Look how good my economy's doing. Gas is down. Food prices are down. We're going to bring in affordability. That's government saying, hey, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comments below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. And don't forget, the government is that parasitic, psychopathic, criminal, thieving, violent gang that you were afraid would take over in the absence of government. I'll see you in the next video.